Teela, the warrior goddess hero of Masters of the Universe. Evelyn, Skeletor's girlfriend and evil goddess of warrior Masters of the Universe. The sorceress, protector of Castle Grayskull, and the Green Goddess? Okay, who the heck is the Green Goddess in Masters of the Universe? I'm sure you recognize the previous three. Is this just Teela turning green and having a cold? I mean, she certainly looks like a repaint of Teela, and toy companies have not been shy at all about doing repaints of Teela. No, the Green Goddess is something a little different. She's not exactly a repaint of Teela, and she's sort of kind of her own character. Well, I guess it depends on which toy line you're talking about. But she's a very interesting character that goes all the way back to the beginning of Masters of the Universe in 1982. And she's getting a new figure released in 2021, so she's a figure worth understanding. And to do that, we've got to do a little toy history. So let's dive in and talk about the origin and beginnings of the Green Goddess in Masters of the Universe. So one of the very first images we ever get in He-Man and the Masters of the Universe has the Green Goddess. She's the character giving He-Man all of his equipment to be a hero. That was back when He-Man used a power vest to become powerful. It gave him a force field. In each episode, he was going to get new vests that gave him new powers, and they were supplied by the goddess. Well, the goddess is very much related to Teela, not literally by blood, but by design. And by design, I mean toy design. I've mentioned this in other videos, but you'll notice on the Teela figure from 1982, she's called the Warrior Goddess. Well, that's because Teela started off as two different characters. She started off as the Warrior, who was eventually named Teela, named after an elephant by Don Glut, one of his favorite elephants of all time, and the Goddess, who eventually was also called the Sorceress, or the Green Goddess. So, both figures were the same toy. In other words, it's like a head swap. When you put the snake armor on, the character is called the Goddess, and later on, eventually called the Sorceress. Without the snake armor, it's Teela, the Warrior. The idea was this was a boys' toy line, and they wanted to have two females, but they only wanted to tool one of them, and they didn't want to sell them separately. So you buy one figure, and you got two characters that you could dress up. Eventually, the character of the Goddess became the character of the Sorceress, especially once Filmation came around and changed her look from a snake-inspired outfit to a bird-inspired outfit, because we all know bird beats snake. But going back to the very beginning, the Green Goddess, or the Goddess, appeared in two panels in the mini-comics. This one, where the character who became He-Man saw her from afar and then goes in to save her, and as a reward for saving her, he's given armor and an axe and boots and a belt and a shield. Now, she was colored green in order to further differentiate her from Teela. Teela in the mini-comics was given blonde hair, not her traditional red, and no snake armor. This was to help kids playing with the toys realize that this one toy they bought represented two different characters in the story, depending on whether or not she was wearing the snake armor. Eventually, the green skin was removed or gotten rid of, and she just had Caucasian skin, but remained with the snake armor to differentiate her as the magical sorceress versus the warrior Teela. Here you can see them in a panel side by side, actually battling each other for reasons. But the idea is one purchase, two figures. And then, of course, in the mini-comics, eventually they combine into one character and then are separated again because comics are weird. And this was one of those weird examples. But that doesn't just make the Goddess, or Green Goddess, I'm just going to call it a Goddess going forward, a green repaint of Teela. If you were just going to get a green repaint of Teela, well, maybe it would have looked like this. And they probably could have sold this figure and called her the Goddess back in the day. But, again, it being a boys' toy line, the idea was to have one figure. If you really want a green Teela, hey, you could always get Snake Teela. So, nowadays, the Green Goddess has actually emerged as her own character.
Not. I'm an original creation like Ricky Rouse and Ronald Muck. Now, as your nanny, I'll do everything.
She's no longer Teela, she's no longer the Sorceress, but she's legitimately an actual developed character in the Masters of the Universe lore. Here's the upcoming 2021 Origins figure. Now, she is a repaint of Teela, which is why she shows up in a ton of toy lines, because she's easy to do, no tooling. You just have to apply a different colored paint or give her clear plastic or however. In Masters of the Universe Classics, the figure we're looking at here was the first time she was really identified truly as a different character and not simply green Teela, which we could have done her as concept Teela, but the idea was to establish as many characters as possible to sell as many toys as possible, hoping as few of them had broken legs as possible. So, for the first time in Motu Classics, Goddess was now her own character and was different from Teela and different from the Sorceress. Now, for eagle-eyed viewers who read her bio on the back of the package, her real name is noted as Shirella. So here's the other half of the story. Who's Shirella? Well, for that we have to go back to Preternia. And that barbarian girl with the bow and arrow to the right of He-Ro there is a character that for many, many years fans have assumed is Shirella. I know that doesn't answer your question of who is Shirella, but obviously she's popular enough to get custom figures and full bios written by the fan community. Well, I mean, come on, who doesn't love a barbarian female character? So where does Shirella come from? Well, the only mention in all of the continuity is from a 1987 licenser kit that was given out for people who wanted to license Motu to put on shirts and birthday plates and, those kind of things. And in the bio for He-Ro, it is mentioned that one of his allies was a warrior named Shirella. The Power of Grayskull line with He-Ro never shipped, but this bio in the licenser kit did. So it became some of the only content for the Powers of Grayskull line. Some of the figures like Titus and Megator shipped, but again, no He-Ro. But the artwork that was on Titus and Megator was part of it too, because this was some of the only artwork done for Preternia and the He-Ro, Eldor, Shirella storyline, if you will. It showed the giants battling the Snake Men, and if we go back to Megator's package art briefly, you will notice in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a female warrior running with a bow and arrow. Well, since Shirella is mentioned as one of He-Ro's allies, fans made the assumption that this must be Shirella. There is absolutely no documentation that this was Shirella. From what I can tell from the research I did, this was just a sort of random barbarian girl put on the packaging to further just show that innocents were always threatened by bad guys and He-Ro had to save them. Just an attractive female in a barbarian outfit. It shows up in pop culture and fantasy and sci-fi all the time. So, that being said, fans have adopted this image as Shirella, and it's appeared in tons of fan art and, as the aforementioned, fan customs, fan bios, etc. And with classics, it seemed like a good idea at the time to sort of just roll with this, because, hey, why not? So we put Shirella in the mini-comics with He-Ro, and in the 2 panels that you see her in, she is shot by a poison arrow from Quick Flick. Who is Quick Flick? Well, he was a new Snake Men character that Axel and I co-created. I'm a big fan of the Snake Men. I liked expanding their ranks. Fangor, Lady Slither. Quick Flick was basically was to give them an archer, because they didn't have an archer, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. So, a new character appeared in 1 panel, but Axel was nice enough to draw him out in a few really cool drawings. So after she's poisoned by this arrow, the next panel you see is her lying in bed, and she's getting a blood transfusion from none other than Mossman. And ideally, fans were going to put these 2 images together and realize that with her name being Shirella from the bio, that Mossman giving her a transfusion is what gave her her magical powers and turned her skin green. So, while she definitely started off as just Teela with a snake armor headdress in order to do a twofer and sell 2 figures at once, and she was colored green in the mini-comic to differentiate her and Teela visually for kids reading the mini-comics, to be able to realize that if they had 1 toy, she could be 2 different characters if you put the armor on or not. And in Classics was when she was really defined as her own character, given the name Shirella in her bio. And for fans following the breadcrumbs, Shirella meant this was the character from Preternia, established in the 1987 licenser kit, and therefore if that was Shirella, seeing Shirella get hit by an arrow in the mini-comic and get a blood transfusion from Mossman The idea was to put all those pieces together and realize that Shirella from the He-Ro Powers of Grayskull would grow up to be the Green Goddess, thanks to the magical blood transfusion from Mossman. And now she's a very popular character in Masters of the Universe lore, appearing in fan art, almost every toy line, since she's a simple repaint of Teela from a logistics standpoint. And in the end, every pop culture line pretty much needs hot female green characters. I mean, you can't have a fantasy story without an attractive green female, and it's good that Masters of the Universe has one too, because it's one of the best properties out there, and all for more diversity. Hope you enjoyed this video and it connected some dots for you. If you like it, do share it with others. It helps tell YouTube to share with other people. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. I always comment back. See you next time.